welcome to our new studio.
Yeah, thanks.
What do you think?
Looks great. Already told Jacob, like, you should get more stuff in here. Like, it feels
More
so empty.
more stuff. What I don't think of people who are watching right now, I don't think they realize that this is a really, really small space. But I think Jacob's done a great job of doing more with less. Absolutely.
Optimal utilization, right?
Yeah, no, but it's great to be able to just come in and to do a quick webinar like this where we don't have to go, off site, and the sound is really good. Yeah. We've got the screen up here, which we can reference to. The people at home can see this. So I know right now you guys are thinking, we can't see the screen back here, but it doesn't really matter because we can show it to you guys as we're talking about it. But yeah, so welcome to the SynergyXR studio. Thanks for joining us. I know you're a super busy guy, so I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So over the course of the next half hour, 45 minutes, let's see how long it takes. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we want to talk about within the framework of the metaverse, the corporate metaverse, and we're going to kind of walk through what you've defined as kind of the 7 rules for success.
Sure.
I kind of think of this as a primer for anyone who's interested in just learning about what the metaverse is, but in particular, what it means for businesses. Because I think by now most people have heard the term metaverse. I was looking at a Google trend the other day of the keyword the metaverse, and it's obviously spiked in part because somebody we're going to talk about in just a few moments, but their company was rebranded to Meta. Because I've been saying in Danish, I've been saying Meta, but it's actually when I hear Americans pronounce it, which I am, so they're actually saying Meta. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that's really exciting right now. It's at the top of everybody's mind. What we want to do over the course of the next 30, 45 minutes is kind of, flesh things out a little bit, unpack it, and then help people understand, what is it? What does it mean for businesses? What are the certain rules that apply for me and my business?
Yeah.
And then I think probably the last and most important thing is how do I get started as a company?
Yeah.
So why don't we start with the overarching question? It's not a curveball, but it really is, what the hell is a or the metaverse? And the reason I asked that question is because when I was doing research for this and working in this field for the last year and a half, I've come across both ways of talking about it.
Yeah.
There's going to be a metaverse. You can create, or there a metaverses, plural, or there's the metaverse. I'll stop there. When you hear me ask this question, what are you thinking?
I think, first of all, it's a very relevant question. And I think people are very, very opinionated about this if you start searching online. I think it's like borderline religious for some people trying to define this. I don't really see the reason why. But yeah, it's one of the things we'll try to shed some light on, at least our point of view of what the metaverse is.
Why do you think people are so opinionated about it? Why does it mean so much to them?
I think it's a big topic, and I think also a lot of people are using it sort of just to their own advantage. So, like, some people have an online game that puts people together in a shared world, and because the metaverse is on everybody's lips, they start calling that a metaverse or the metaverse, right? And then people are very opinionated, like, no, it's far wider than that. And and that's where you go into like a lot of semantics, a lot of guesswork, a lot of visions, a lot of big players pouring a lot of energy and investment into this area. And each of them also pulling it in their individual direction.
Right, so everybody's just trying to get ownership of it right now. There's a big land grab.
It's on everybody's lips. So of course you want like your piece of that pie, right? You want to sort of project that to your own business or what you're working on yourself.
But we've seen this before, right?
Sure. Yeah.
This isn't the first time that we've seen a new concept.
Industry 4.0 and digital twins and you can go back in history.
Well, in all honesty, we use all of those terms. Just check out our hashtags on LinkedIn. So, but that's more just for marketing purposes.
That's true. That's true.
Well, there's the hype circle, right? There's the classic hype curve. Where are we on that curve right now?
It's a good question. Like regarding the metaverse, I think we're quite early because at least my sort of understanding of, or my definition of what the metaverse is, it's a massive technical undertaking to really master it. So if you're thinking about the metaverse as being this completely connected, shared experiences, blending the virtual world with the physical world.
Yeah.
And you as a user, you can walk in and out of these experiences with your own decentralized own identity. So that like both your data, but also your appearance, so your avatar, like it requires a lot of stuff. It requires a lot of standards defining how you can actually do this. And I think a lot of what's happening now, even the big players, they are creating a version of the metaverse, because I think there can only be sort of one. It's the same. We only have one intranet, right? It doesn't make sense to talk about multiple intranets. But I think what Meta is doing they're creating their own version of the metaverse. What like Microsoft is doing a lot of initiatives on trying to enable developers to create versions or parts of the metaverse.
The metaverse.
Yeah.
So for you, it's not a metaverse. It's the metaverse.
Yeah, exactly. I think there is like for this to really to fully lean into this vision, it should be a single metaverse where everything is interconnected. There will be needs apart from that.
Right.
So as you see, like we have one intranet, right? I
Right.
hope we can all agree on that.
Right.
But like each individual company usually have like an intranet or a version thereof, right?
Right.
So
Right.
their own private, internal, networked system where they can share experiences and training materials and stuff like that. And each individual company will have their own, and they are not shared, and you can just not walk from one to the other. So similar to that, we will have sort of the metaverse one day, probably quite a few years from now.
Okay.
But we will also have these small, like each company or each entity in some shape or capacity, like it could be a research institution or whatever, would need their own sort of enclosed part. And that's what we start coining as the corporate metaverse.
Okay, so effectively, if I understand correctly, so when we talk about the corporate metaverse, we're saying that people can have a part of the metaverse, so be a part of the metaverse.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And I think these pieces will also be more connected over time. But I think right now, until we have sort of all the standards and all the technical foundation figured out for the metaverse, like there's plenty of benefits for companies to lean into and reap the benefits of creating these parts of a future metaverse.
Where are we right now, though? I mean, can I tap into the metaverse today? Does the metaverse exist? Has it always existed? We just haven't found it yet. Talk more about that.
That's a good question. In my point of view, no, it doesn't exist. I think there are a lot of people that create these. Some people call it walled gardens.
Okay.
So if we look into Meta's offerings, like they have Horizon Worlds, which is this place where you can go in and create your own little virtual home, and you can invite your friends over and you can play games. And then they have
Is that his vision? The wall.
I think it's part of his vision. I think, to be honest, I'm not completely sure, and I probably shouldn't talk on behalf of Mr. Zuckerberg here.
He almost looks like a rabbit there. No, I mean,
yeah, it's not the most appealing.
and if
picture
people aren't familiar with it, then it's basically the new Meta logo, which has been put on his face. Like I guess that's I don't know, some type of sleepy mask. I don't
Hero's
know.
mask, if you ask him, probably.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't know.
all right.
But like, yeah, and they also have this Horizon Workrooms, which is more like business focused for like usual conference meeting type of experiences, but even there you cannot, like, you don't have a shared identity, so
Right.
you actually have individual accounts for those
Okay.
two experiences, probably because it's still in some sort of alpha beta stage,
Right.
But it's definitely not something that where you can just pick up and go into a completely other experience developed by some other company. Like they will try and wall their offering and try to sort of own the metaverse. But I think there will be no owner of the metaverse. Like the entire idea is a completely decentralized entity that connects all of these experiences, right? So by trying to walling it and by trying to own it, you will ever only own like a small part of it,
Right?
And probably in time be excluded from sort of the massive vision.
Well, because we've
of
seen
the
this
metaverse.
before, right? I mean, that's kind of been the model over the last 20 years. These companies, Apple's done it, Google's done it, Meta's doing it now. I mean, we've created these wall gardens, which we're basically, I don't know, for lack of a better word, trapped in to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Do you think there'll be pushback going forward as we think about how the metaverse is going to be built?
I hope so. Also, just for like ensuring accessibility for the end user, and to like, if this is a vision that we really truly want to live, and that's probably worth another discussion, right? Some ethics about this as well.
We'll save that for our ethics.
Exactly.
We'll save that for our ethics webinar.
Yeah, exactly. But if we really want to live this vision, then I hope there will be pushback, and I think there are already pushback. Like I think a lot of, especially like the younger generations, are starting to really not appreciate these social networks, as you say, like being trapped.
You know what's coming back now? I just read this in the New York Times this morning.
Oh,
Analog landline telephones.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's a thing now.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I had a huge smile on my face when I read that this morning. I was like, finally somebody gets me.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. These things tend to go in circles, right?
They do.
Like people like us, we try to ensure that people are more and more online and try to make that more human and interconnected. And of course, there's always a counter, like going like offline is the new black, and like leaving your phone and going to the forest. And like I enjoy that myself when I have time off. But yeah, I think there'll always be those like pushbacks when something goes a bit too far.
And in all honesty, the same was probably said when the TV was introduced versus the radio.
Yeah.
The same thing was probably said when the internet was introduced versus what we knew before. I mean, I think that's just the conversation we normally have around the evolution of technology. I want to show you this, though. This is a definition of the metaverse. It was released just a few weeks ago by Gartner. And it says, the metaverse is a collective virtual open space created by the convergence, like you said, a virtually enhanced physical and digital reality. It is physically persistent and provides enhanced immersive experience. So take a step back from this definition. Do you agree, disagree? How does this sit with you?
I think it's hard to just be like to give you a Boolean answer on that, like a yes or no. But I think there's a lot of things that I completely agree with. I think we see a lot of people in this space, like, for example, in virtual reality. They create some sort of shared space in virtual reality, and they call it the metaverse. But they're missing sort of the physical part, right? And that's what I personally find very important, that like the metaverse will blend these virtual experiences with the physical world, and even blend like physical humans with virtual avatars. And in time, we might even have a hard time distinguishing if I'm talking to you or an avatar of you. So this idea of both having physical entities and virtual entities and merging those together is a really important thing in my point of view.
Okay.
And the persistence, so like physically persistence.
What does that mean?
It basically means like if we had this room we're sitting in, and we would put up some virtual items in here. It could be a much bigger screen than the one we have here. We just like put on a 50-inch TV screen, a virtual one of those. And then when we came back tomorrow, it would still be here. So it's persistent in this physical space.
Move.
It doesn't move.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tracked and stable in the physical world.
And that's because it's being able to be saved in the metaverse. How does that work?
Yeah, like both like being able to recognize the environment, or at least like the whichever device you might be accessing the metaverse with. That could be like these glasses a few years from now. Being able to recognize the environment we were in and continuously track where we were, and then basically retrieving some information that we saved this screen and the position of it. And thereby it would be able to place it in the physical space.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it sounds like distant future, but it's actually what what we can do today. Not with glasses like these; they're a bit more bulky. Like we're usually working with the Microsoft HoloLens to do these types of things, but you can actually do it with your mobile.
So that's where we're headed, huh? Today we have the HoloLens. Today we have these glasses. I think people can see a few of them around us. Yeah. Do you think that's where we're headed?
I think that's one of the places we're headed. Like there
is that before the contact lens or the implant into our brain? The neural implant.
I think there are a lot of scary places to go from there, but at least history.
Elon Musk is working on that, by the way.
Yeah, I know. He's doing a lot of crazy stuff.
Yes, he is.
But at least time has told us or shown us that these head-mounted displays keep getting more and more capable, so like more processing power, more realism, higher resolution displays, so it doesn't look so pixelated, and smaller and like more self-contained.
Right.
So it's definitely like it's a trend we have seen over the last like many years by now, but definitely accelerated these last years. And we already see quite a few examples of like normal prescription-sized glasses. Devices that are capable of some of this, usually with like an external processing unit.
Yeah, I was about to say, how do you fit that much computing power into a frame like that? It'll be interesting to see how that technology develops over the next few years. I think the hardware is going to be an essential part of how fast we evolve the metaverse.
It will, but again, already we can look back and history shows us like it's getting smaller, it's getting more affordable, and like just like normal people can just go to a normal convenience store and buy some of these headsets now.
Right.
So it's not something that's just reserved for the biggest of enterprises and like having to invest like millions into getting these devices. Like you can buy a state-of-the-art VR headset for $300
That's
these
it.
days, right?
I mean, that price point is amazing.
It is. Yeah.
It was probably 10 times that just a few years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you would need to have like a separate computer to actually drive it.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool. So I want to show you an image real quick.
Yeah.
When I did a Google search of the metaverse, you get millions of hits.
Sure.
This one stood out because I think it kind of it was a visual representation of that definition that I showed before.
Yeah.
Is this how you kind of see the metaverse playing out? Because I think what it does is it shows we have the physical, we have the guy there, he's real.
Yeah.
The guy with the coffee is real.
Yeah.
And then it looks like there's somebody as an avatar walking by, but it's also super realistic. I mean, and then we have data being shown around. And I think the interesting thing is there's no keyboard.
Yeah.
There's no computer screen.
Yeah.
And it's probably like you just said, it's probably built into his glasses somehow, right?
Yeah, at least that would be our best guess without knowing more. But like I think again, it's hard to say if this is what it will look like.
Sure.
But I think it has a lot of elements of what we can expect and what we can already see glimpses of today in today's technology. So yeah, you're right. Like this guy sitting at his table, probably doing some work. At least it looks like some architectural drawings or something like that on top, and he has his like communication panels using Teams or whatever he's using, and his music and stuff.
Wait. So we're gonna have to use Teams in the metaverse?
If you ask Microsoft, sure.
Yeah. Oh no.
If you ask Meta, they probably would like you to use
Can we
Messenger.
find a better, platform? Please, come on now.
Sure. But yeah, no, it's just like he added these virtual elements to be able to do his work without having to put up like a big flat screen.
Well, I think this is a great job of talking about. We say a lot that metaverse is the internet in 3D. I mean, for me, I'm able to wrap my head around it by seeing a visual representation like this.
And that's why I say like there are a lot of good elements in this, right? And exactly as you say, it also shows the blending of virtual and physical environments, which I think is really vital for this to really to encompass the metaverse. So yeah, as you say, like a relatively lifelike avatar of a woman walking by.
Well, I think it's really exciting.
Yeah,
I think it's something to get excited about.
Yeah.
Let's move ahead. So one of the things that I often hear is like, we talk a lot about how the metaverse is going to affect how we work. And that's obviously, our business is catering to the business world.
Yeah.
But the metaverse is more than just the future of work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how big is this thing? Is it going to affect every aspect of our life?
Yeah, I think so, to be honest. Like,
Because the cool thing about this, it's it's how we pay, it's how we live, it's how we work, it's how we play,
meet with
how
friends
we meet.
and family. It might even be like the new way of traveling. So, like in a world where we are at least encouraged to travel and fly less, like you could go on a vacation on Laos in pure virtual reality and lifelike reality, right? Virtual reality or stuff like that. I still think like there would be a lot you would be missing out on, and
Sure,
like
absolutely.
not experience it in real life. But yeah, I think it will. I think that's why a lot of people do the comparison with the internet and sort of say the next generation of the internet, which I don't disagree with. I don't think it's enough to say what the metaverse is.
Right.
But it's the same, like think back 20, 25 years, something like that. I don't think any of us could have foreseen the impact the internet has on our day-to-day life. It impacts everything. How we work, as you say, how we communicate with friends, how we order everything online, how we search reviews of where we're going on vacation, like a lot of stuff, right?
It all starts here on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to be similar with the metaverse, or probably even to an even larger extent.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's jump forward. I think this was another interesting stat that popped out. It says the 25%, that's the estimated amount of people worldwide who by 2026, that's only 4 years from now, will use at least 1 hour a day in the metaverse for work, plus education, entertainment, social media, shopping. 25%, that's a lot of people. That's more than, that's quite a few billion people.
Yeah. It's an amazingly large number.
Yeah.
Again, since we know where technology is and what we're actually able to do today, I find that highly achievable. And to be honest, I think for me, it could almost be sort of a goal, because that has also shown us, if you can convince people to spend an hour a day in this new metaverse or something that will one day be the true metaverse, you have really created something that creates value to people, because otherwise they will not spend that hour.
Right.
So for me, I think that's almost sort of like a lighthouse goal to work towards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the same could probably be said about the rise of the internet. I mean, these numbers were probably the same. I mean, you hit, people spending 1 hour a day, and then suddenly it goes to a few hours a day, and then we have our mobiles, and it's almost 24 hours a day for some people.
Yeah.
Great. So let's move over to the next topic and talk about why should companies care about the metaverse. And I think you've kind of, you've set the foundation for that so far.
Yeah.
If I'm an executive for a company right now, or just anybody who works for a company, why should I care about this?
I think, again, if we take the easy analogy with the internet, it would be sort of the same. Why would you ask any company 20, 25 years ago, why would you be on the internet? And today it's like, if you want to be just the least bit relevant, of course you are active on the internet and have like an active company profile.
So it's a matter of just staying relevant, huh?
That's one thing, and that's, as I said, it's the easiest thing, right? It's if you don't jump on this wagon, it will leave you in the dust. Right. But I think there are also a lot of, if we take the sort of the work side of it first, I think there are so many benefits to be had. Like, we live in a world where it's getting more and more normal to work very distributed, both because people are getting used to it after a couple of years of lockdown,
right.
But also just like getting the right talent and having them move around, it's getting more and more difficult for companies. So being able to have a distributed workforce and have them work together efficiently and effectively is going to be should be sort of on the priority list of any C-level executive, right? And by opening up to the metaverse and having these seamless shared experiences, from everything from, as you saw in that picture, just having your normal workspace desk with your communication panel and your work apps, just being able to extend that to an indefinitely large work surface,
right?
To being able to even do just social things with your colleagues in a fun shared environment is something that is relevant. We see companies investing a lot of money in relatively simple and old school sort of web hotels just to have some 2D interface where their colleagues can go in and have a chat, which is, to me, is just weird, because these technologies are mature enough to do it today, right?
Right.
So I think just from a work perspective, it's going to be something that there's so many benefits to be had, so companies should lean into it. And then I think end consumers will start expecting it. Like they will expect being able to you want to order this new chair from a certain company, like you would be able to just place it in your physical room and walk around it.
Grab my phone, tap my glasses, and I can suddenly see that image.
Exactly.
How it's going to be in my room.
Change the color, see maybe I just switch it to another one. How would that look with this desk or whatever?
Right.
And as soon as consumers start expecting it, the winners will be the ones that can deliver on that expectation, right?
So what I hear you saying is a lot of it has to do with this, how organizations are going to work as an organization moving forward, but also how they're going to cater to their markets through their services and products.
Exactly.
Yeah, because one of the things we talk a lot about SynergyXR is the way we work obviously is rapidly changing, but if we take it up to a higher level, it's like the world around us is also rapidly changing thanks to the recent advancements in technology. And to your point, where we work is shifting from office to work. Now, I wouldn't say that people can work anywhere, anytime across every organization, because obviously there will be some jobs where you're still tethered to the office. You still have the whole 9 to 5 routine. But we do see the ability for people to work remotely, especially maybe in a hybrid type of work environment, 2 days in the office, 3 days remotely, or vice versa. But also, how we work is also changing, and it's moving to new platforms. I mean, our platform, for example, and that's going to let us connect in powerfully new ways. I think the third part here is why we work. What I'm seeing and what I think is really interesting is that, especially the younger generation, the Gen X, the Gen Ys that are coming in right now, I see them being driven by a sense of purpose and sustainability. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think you're tapping sustainability. Like everybody knows that it's actually not sustainable spending so much energy and stuff like that and traveling around. So of course technologies like this will enable us to not do that. I think you're right regarding purpose. It's important to everybody, but increasingly important to the younger generations. And whether the metaverse in itself can sort of create or maybe make it clearer, sort of the purpose of your work, I'm uncertain about that.
Well, I think they're also digital natives as well. I mean,
sure.
Gen Y, Gen Zs, they've grown up with the internet. You and I remember a time when there wasn't an internet. I was in my late teens, early 20s when the internet came out. So I still remember a time where, I didn't have my phone with me all the time, or wasn't able to just look up on Google for an answer. Yeah. But I also think they've grown up in a time where we're much more conscious of the climate. That's a part of the zeitgeist today. So, and I think they're going to be expecting that in the way that we live, work, and play. Yeah. Less travel, more focused on what we eat and what we eat, and how that's contributing to the overall carbon footprint of companies in the world. Yeah. When I talk to younger generation, my kids, for example, I mean, they have a completely different outlook and mindset than I think I did, at least when I was young.
Sure.
I think that plays into this as well. Let's move forward, because I think what's interesting is great, we've had the metaverse. That's a super interesting thing that's happening. Companies should be paying attention. If not, they're going to miss the bus. I think that was what you said. And they have to stay relevant. But here's the thing. You wrote an article called The 7 Rules of the Corporate Metaverse. Yeah. Why do companies need a different set of rules?
I think the entire ideology about the metaverse being this completely open and you can just jump between everything, it's sort of the equivalent to just leaving your door to your corporate headquarters unlocked overnight. Companies cannot and should not sort of accept those terms. Of course, they will need their own more fenced, controlled environment. So sort of similar to if the metaverse is the intranet, right? Then the corporate metaverse is their own intranet, where they are in complete control and where there's not all accessible experiences and data and stuff like that, but whatever is relevant to their companies, to their employees, that being everything from onboarding material, training material, but also like fun and social things that are relevant for that group of colleagues, right? And having that on a secure platform where they know that they are the company is in control of who actually gets access and to which level, and they can control which data is available to their employees, is going to be massively important for them, especially like to start adopting some of these technologies.
So I hear you talk a lot about privacy and control. So that seems to be some of the key words.
That's certainly something that we have learned working in the space for big corporate companies in the last many years. Like, they want to ensure that whichever data, it's secure, they know who has access to it. And I think that's where, if we're going back to Meta, like they have a bit of a legacy and some at least in the public point of view, some issues
Company
there. Like
that everybody loves to hate.
Exactly. But then again, their business model is selling targeted ads. So they need to know as much as possible about you.
Right.
So they can sell commercials that are targeted you, so they can charge the most for them, right? And you can just like backtrack from there. Like, of course, they want you into a virtual world where they can track everything you're doing.
Did you see the video where Mark Zuckerberg had to go to the Senate hearing, and the senator asked him, was like, well, how do you sustain a business model with that? And he just kind of looks at him just for a long time. He was like, well, Senator, we sell advertisements.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And he just kind of shook his head like, okay, I don't understand anything that's going on right now.
Generation shifts, right? Yeah, I agree. It was really funny. But yeah, and I think companies are not willing to sort of deliver all their like internal core intellectual property into the hands of a company that is sort of their entire business model is to traverse all that and know the most they can about users to sort of to their own benefits.
Right. So you wrote 7 rules.
Yeah.
Let's dig into them.
Yeah.
And I think maybe some of them are kind of grouped together, so we can do that if you want to.
Yeah. I think it might be worth saying, like, this article was inspired by a great inspirational, he's called Tony Parisi. He's working for Unity Technologies. He's been working in metaverse or related technologies in like 20 plus years, so he's really brilliant. And he sort of got tired of seeing like all of these different opinions of what the metaverse is. So he wrote his own 7 rules of what the metaverse is in his point of view.
Okay.
And it was sort of inspired by that, because there was just a lot of things, again, saying like, I would really hate it if all companies just sat back saying like, okay, no, we'll wait till that metaverse thing is ready and then we'll jump on it, because there are so many things, so many related technologies where they can have like massive benefits and return on investment today. So that's why I sort of rewrote those, inspired by Tony Parisi's article, and sort of to take my view on like why some of these technologies are ready today and what companies should be especially aware of when implementing some of these.
Well, I'm sure Tony would be touched that you built on top of his great article.
So. Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
It got a lot of traction, if I recall.
He did, yeah. It was shared extensively.
Did he get pushback as well?
A lot, yeah, sure.
But that's a part of, entering into the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Great. Let's dig into them.
Sure.
Rule number 1, organizations can have their own corporate metaverse. What do you mean by that?
It's sort of going back to, we touched upon it a few times, like since companies want to be in complete control of what they have in data and how they share it and to whom, like they will need their own metaverse. And you could have said like their own part of the metaverse, but that's why we coined this the corporate metaverse,
metaverse.
So similar to their own intranet. So their own walled garden of shared experiences, which are like a blend between the physical and the virtual, for everything from like onboarding and training scenarios and maintenance and fun and games and you name it. So basically just saying like companies should be able to have their own and own their own part.
Similar to companies should have their own corporate website today.
Exactly.
Is there a similarity there?
Yeah, exactly. I guess the only difference is when we say the corporate metaverse, you would have to, we'll get to that. That's one of the sort of the rules or whatever we want to call it. You would have to invite people to come and see part of your corporate metaverse, whereas a corporate website is, open to everybody.
It's open to everybody.
Yeah. So that's sort of the difference, right?
Well, it's interesting to see how that's going to evolve.
Sure. Yeah.
If you can just kind of jump between metaverses the same way you can just put in a URL into a browser and then just go to a different website.
Yeah.
We'll save that for the next.
Yeah, I think also
webinar.
I think this one of the later rules.
That is right. That is right. You touch on it. All right. Rule number 2: the corporate metaverse is for everyone in your organization.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
It was inspired by Tony Paris's rule was that the metaverse is for everyone, and so the corporate metaverse is for everyone in your organization. Sort of saying like, this is not something only for corporate meetings or only for your service department to do like service on your products when they're like installed at the customers,
right?
Or like it has something for everybody, so everybody can sort of find their place. It can be just an easy way of sharing internal knowledge. It can be a place where people go for more social things. It can be part of, or should be, if you ask me, it should be part of like just the standard onboarding, so people get a completely other a complete new and much deeper understanding of the company they're about to start working for. That's what I mean. Like it has something for everybody, and everybody's welcome. So it's not something like exclusive only for R&D engineers and no one else. Right. So that's sort of what
I think that's beautiful. I think that's really good. So I mean, it's going to affect everyone. Regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
In many ways, the internet has already affected everyone.
I agree.
Okay, rule number 3: you control your own corporate metaverse. I think you touched on that before.
Yeah, quite a few times. So it's you own the key, and you can decide who actually gets access, and you can decide what is actually available in there. So you can have experiences and data that is relevant to your companies and the employees and the people working there, right? So yeah, that's what I mean by you control it. It's yours to control. It's not something where you just tap into a larger walled experience where they decide what is actually available to your.
Well, clearly, control and privacy, and when you're dealing with intellectual property, company secrets, patents, so on and so forth, is obviously of great concern for companies.
Exactly, as it should be.
Yeah. So. Rule number 4, love this image. The corporate metaverse is open if you're invited and you can get through this big bouncer right here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's again like the entire idea of the metaverse is for it to be completely open, decentralized. Like nobody should, like Meta shouldn't be the one saying like, yeah, you can enter, but you can't.
Right.
But again, companies, like they have another requirement. Like they need to be in control of who can actually enter and who can't. So that's why we installed the bouncer here.
No, I love it. I kind of liken it to companies having like an open door policy. They may say that, but you're not going to be able to get into any major corporation unless you're invited, right?
Exactly. And it should be the same here. Like it shouldn't be for anybody just to walk in and have a browse around and leave whenever they want. Like it should be by invitation only, right?
Right. Makes sense. And rule number 5, the corporate metaverse is hardware independent. I think this is a great one because everybody's looking at the hardware space. They're like, okay, is it going to be Oculus? Is it going to be Pico? Is it going to be the HoloLens? Everybody's been talking about for quite a few years now that Apple's coming out with a product. They keep pushing it back, but I do think it's eventually going to come out. And when it does, it will probably be a game changer. What do you mean by hardware independent?
I think it's again going back to a lot of people are using the term metaverse to sort of tailor their own needs. So we see like an example, like companies only creating, like right now actually Meta is only publicly having virtual reality glasses, right? Even though they start having like pass-through capabilities and stuff like that.
They've got the whole collaboration with Facebook as well, but that's not...
Oh, with Ray-Ban, exactly.
With Ray-Ban,
But it's more like, I would say like there's a lot of focus on hardware. And I think hardware is really interesting as well. But in the grand scheme of the metaverse, I see hardware as only sort of your binoculars into the metaverse, like your way of accessing that data that is available. And that's why I'm writing like it should be hardware independent. It shouldn't be something like, oh, I need to use this particular PC or VR.
Imagine if we could only get on the
headphones
internet
or
with like a specific hardware. Yeah,
exactly.
it's a really good analogy.
It should really be something, since it should be accessible to everybody. It should be something that is just an integral part of our everyday life. It should be accessible by the device you just have at hand. So one day you might have like a fully immersive experience in a full VR headset. Another day you might access some data or some experiences that require you to see the real world and only having like added virtual content to it. So you'd use like an AR-enabled smartphone or some glasses or stuff like that. And it should be completely independent. It shouldn't be like a walled garden where Meta is only interested in you buying the Oculus Quest.
Right.
They're not really interested in supporting like that you can join from a normal PC, because they don't sell that. So, but I think that's really, to have it really being widespread and accessible to everybody is really important, that it's device agnostic. It's like independent on whichever device you want to use.
Great. So rule number 6, the corporate metaverse is a network.
Yeah. Again, this was sort of stolen from Tony Parisi. I think he had the exact same. So the metaverse is a network. And it's just to say, it sort of goes without saying, we're so used to everything just being online and connected and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
And it's basically the same, right? It's not one application. It's not something that you go in and then that's it. Like, it's a network of experiences and applications and data and like social graphs, so you know who you can access and quickly talk to, like someone who's relevant for you in either if it's for business or pleasure. So yeah, it's probably in this day and age it almost goes.
It's kind of a given.
Saying.
Yeah, it's a given.
Yeah, but just to say, like, it's not going to be Horizon Worlds. That's the metaverse. No,
right.
Like, it will never be that, because one application will never be able to sort of encompass everything that people would want to do.
So you're saying it'll be applications kind of communicating together, creating this big network of different software providers, hardware providers, building the greater metaverse for the greater good of humanity.
And hopefully users being able to seamlessly like move between these without having to log out and log in as another entity.
Well, I remember when user-generated content was a big thing back in the early 2000s, and now you just kind of take it for granted. I mean, Facebook wouldn't exist if it wasn't for user-generated content. Nope. I mean, most social media, if not all social media, is based upon us giving them content. I, in fact, think they should pay us for adding content.
You're right. But I think that's also actually a very interesting topic that we could dig a lot deeper into, but I think we should probably avoid.
Right.
But for this to be big, like, it needs to be user-generated content.
Absolutely.
Because a single company, like even as large as Meta or Microsoft, they can never be able to create applications that, like, specific applications that can cater to all needs.
Can't cater to the entire world.
It needs to be the other way around. You need to create frameworks and platforms where the end user, being that, like, for like in the corporate metaverse or just like normal consumers, can create their own content and their own experiences.
Well, I think we should come back and do a podcast about all the tools that are available right now for people to start creating their own content in the metaverse. We'll save that one.
Sure.
And the final rule, the corporate metaverse is your intranet.
Yeah.
Now, intranet's not a super sexy word. We haven't used it in a really long time. Why do you use it here?
It's very like 90s, right? I think.
Very 90s.
Yeah, it is.
But we still have them to a certain extent. I mean, Teams is almost a form of intranet, and Slack to a certain extent.
SharePoint is sort of more modern intranet, right?
A little bit easier to use.
So I think, again, it was sort of to lean into Tony Parisi's article where he wrote that the metaverse is the intranet. So the internet.
Yeah, internet, yeah.
And then saying, like, and the corporate metaverse is your intranet. So it's something that companies have internally that they control.
So a safe space for them to share, collaborate.
Exactly. So it's sort of to give that same analogy.
It kind of goes back to being a closed environment, invitation only.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wonderful. Great. All right. So what steps can companies take today to get started, to start dipping their toes, so to speak, into the metaverse? I mean, you have three points, if I'm not mistaken. You want to walk us through those?
Sure. I think, as with all new initiatives, like, it should start with a need of some sort. Like, you should never just, like, do something for technology's sake or whatever. Like, you should have some specific need. It makes it much easier to sort of get it grounded in your organization, get wider buy-in. So identify some need you might have. And then from there on, like, initiate a small pilot. Don't overthink it necessarily. Like, don't plan out the entire architecture.
A 5-year XR strategy.
Yeah, and a huge governance plan and stuff like that.
Keep it simple, huh?
Start small and start testing out. There are a lot of interesting tech out there that can help companies dip their toe in the water. And exactly like, I would definitely point people towards some of these technologies that enables them to create their own experiences, because it will enable them to much more rapidly test out different scenarios and different needs, and to find their own sweet spot where that's like, okay, this really made a difference for all of these people. Like, we should go further in that direction. And then from there on, like once you've had your pilot and hopefully like maybe numerous
aligned it
pilots,
to a need,
aligned to a need, like you can start building a case or business case, like ensuring that you shouldn't pour money into something and time unless there's a return on investment in some shape or form. But if that's where you start, I think you will never really get going. So I think it's more, this is a better approach, a more lean approach.
Right.
Identify a need, identify a small pilot where you can sort of figure out if this is really a great fit for some of these technologies in your organization. And then from there on, once you have found like a sweet spot, you can start building the case around.
So building a case, figuring out, did we save time? Did we save money? Did we, boost employment satisfaction?
Exactly, yeah.
Do you think companies, once they do these pilots, that they should be super ambitious with their goals, or are they kind of playing the long game here? Given where the space is today?
I think it really depends on the individual businesses. I think there are some, or I know there are some like immediate solid return on investments. We've seen a lot of cases using some of these technologies, right? Like really reducing repair times with remote assistance type of use cases, or very quickly upskilling new workers, training them in a safe virtual environment instead of at very hard to reach and dangerous to operate machinery and stuff like that.
Right.
It's relatively easy to see a good return of investment. But I think it's also sort of it's also partly a long play game. This, like I started out saying, like the metaverse is not just around the corner, but I think there are benefits to be had right now.
Sure.
But like the grand scope of things and where the metaverse will end up being and how that will affect their businesses, that is more of a long-term play.
I mean, not to beat up this reference so many times, but it almost is akin to when companies started exploring the internet, you know, and look where that's gotten us today.
Exactly. So at least start getting familiar with the technologies, what the benefits, what's actually possible and what's not possible yet, and sort of figuring out how that suits with the individual business.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do here at SynergyXR is that we do strategy development workshops, XR strategy development workshops, because we know that a lot of companies have heard of the metaverse, they're interested in it, they know that it needs to be on their strategic agenda. Yeah. They just really struggle to wrap their heads around it and to figure out where to get started, right?
Yeah. And I think it's one of those places, like we're experts in these technologies, right? We've done that for so many years.
Doing it for quite a while, yeah.
But each company is expert in their own domain.
Right.
And that's where we sort of need to meet, because we can tell them what the technology can do, and we have talked to a lot of companies, so we also can draw some pretty good references to similar companies. But the company itself will know their core business. And that's why sort of in the setting of these strategic workshops, we have the time to actually get the domain experts and the tech experts to meet and figure out what could be a good pilot to actually start leaning into.
And then help them set up a project timeline, help them, find out who in the organization we need to bring on this team, set up a launch team, and then help them kickstart.
Align expectations, also help them sort of avoid some of the pitfalls. Like, we know there are some things where there's some marketing that has done a lot of good work of like sort of overselling some of these technologies, and we can help them sort of navigate this landscape, like what is actually possible and what's not really possible yet, and like there are a lot of nuances there. And
I don't take offense as the marketing director that we have a tendency to oversell things.
That's good. Oh, that was my intention.
No, I know.
That's good.
It's okay.
That's good.
It's my job. No, it's not my job. No, great. I feel like what I just said there just kind of like completely broke your rhythm. I apologize.
Nah, no worries.
You were on a roll. Is there anything you wanted to add to that soon? Sorry.
No, I think it's just like we as experts cannot alone go out to companies and say, you should do this.
Sure, we're not coming out with a finished plan, no.
No, exactly. And I know, I think there are actually companies that try to do that. I think that's so wrong. And it's not fair to expect companies to know these technologies and the capabilities intimately. So that's where we think this is sort of the perfect blend, where we will put like domain experts and tech experts in the same room, and we really help companies start like launching and accelerating this journey.
That's great. Sune, thanks so much for joining us. I think we're out of time.
It was a pleasure.
Always happy to have you here in the studio, and we'll get you back next time. So guys, if you want to know more about SynergyXR, who we are, what we do, why we do it, then visit us at SynergyXR.com. Also, if you want to know a little bit more about our XR strategy development workshops, you can find more information about that on our website as well. Great having you with us. I hope you found it informative, and you know what? We can't wait to see you to our next webinar. Take care.